But we begin tonight with what it looks like when Obama derangement syndrome goes awry. During the George W. Bush administration, conservatives coined the phrase Bush derangement syndrome to describe liberals being so blinded by their hatred of George Bush that they would blame everything on him, no matter how unrelated he was to any particular problem. This is one of those rare times in American politics where the mirror effect actually turns out to be true. Because even though the phrase was coined to apply to George W. Bush, Obama derangement syndrome is very much alive and well. You might remember when John McCain ran those TV ads blaming Barack Obama for gas prices, even though Obama was still the junior senator from Illinois at the time.
Who can you thank for rising prices at the pump?
July of 2008, months before Barack Obama was even elected president. But I'm sure his campaign controlled the gas prices somehow. That was an early sign of Obama derangement syndrome to come. Since Mr. Obama has actually been president, you can reliably count on Obama derangement syndrome to kick in for conservatives to blame Mr. Obama for just about anything. You know, for example, like the war he started in Afghanistan.
This was a war of Obama's choosing. This was not something the United States had actively prosecuted or wanted to engage in.
Yes, if only Obama hadn't invaded Afghanistan back in 2001 when he was in the Illinois State Senate. Yeah, nobody knows. Michael Steele, chairman of the Republican Party, speaking there. Obama derangement syndrome also provides a more convenient villain than BP for the BP oil disaster.
But personally, I feel there's a possibility that there was some sort of collusion. I don't know how or why, but in that situation, if you have someone from a company proposing to violate the safety process and then the government signing off on it, excuse me, maybe they wanted it to leak.
Maybe they wanted it to leak. But at the top of today's political news is a story of Obama derangement syndrome gone awry. A story about Obama derangement syndrome backfiring. Last week, 9 states and the District of Columbia were awarded a total of $3 billion in federal education funding. States had to compete for that money. And despite all of the evils of federal money and all of the calls to get the federal government out of education, states coast to coast, even those with Republican governors, applied for this federal money. They clamored for it, and the top 10 applicants got it. Number 11 was the state of New Jersey. And the reason the state of New Jersey didn't get it is because New Jersey Governor Christie's administration screwed up. As we described last week, Governor Christie's administration had a failure of reading comprehension. They committed a typo in their application. Instead of providing information related to the 08-09 fiscal year as was asked for, they inexplicably provided information for the 2011 fiscal year. In the final calculations, that mistake cost the state of New Jersey about 5 points on their scored application. And because of that, they came in 11th instead of 10th. They otherwise would have come in the top 10 and won that federal funding. Governor Christie's administration screw-up cost the residents of New Jersey about $400 million. Governor Christie has responded to this realization with some Hall of Fame level excuses. Excuse number 1, he says the application was very, very long. It was a lot of pages.
This is our race to the top application. In a over 1,000 page application, 300 pages of application, 700 pages of appendices. There was one piece of paper placed in error in that application.
How can you be expected to get something wrong when it's long? When there's a lot of questions, how can you be expected to answer all the questions? It's long. Aside from complaining that the application was long, and therefore the state of New Jersey under Governor Christie's leadership couldn't possibly be expected to read it thoroughly or answer all the questions, Christie, in the grips of Obama derangement syndrome, also decided to try out another excuse. He decided to try to blame President Obama for his own mistake.
president comes back to New Jersey, he's going to have to explain to the people of the state of New Jersey why he's depriving them of $400 million that this application earned them because one of his bureaucrats in Washington couldn't pick up the phone and ask a question, couldn't go on the internet and find information, or wouldn't accept the verbal representation from Commissioner Schundler when they were down there.
Wouldn't accept the verbal representation from Commissioner Schundler, that's the New Jersey Education Commissioner, when they were down there. Wouldn't accept the verbal representation. This is the great conservative hope of the Republican Party in this era. This is the man who Fox News host Glenn Beck says he wants to vote for president in 2012. Governor Christie of New Jersey says if those Obamacrats, those Obama bureaucrats would have just asked the Christie administration about this mistake, the little mistake, they could have cleared up the whole thing. Want to see President Obama's bureaucrats asking the Christie administration to clear up this whole thing? It's on tape. Watch.
We were unable to find in the application the funding levels, school education funding levels, specifically for the years 2008 and 2009 as requested in the application. Can you explain how or where this information was presented in your application?
No, I cannot. I don't.
Well, and you can we can come back to that if someone would take a look. That would be fine.
That'd be helpful.
We just wanted to clarify whether it was there and we did not find it. So, okay, you can take your time with that if somebody wants to.
Yes, let's all agree, yes. Let's come back to that then. It's not okay, we'll give you a second chance. And in fact, a little later on in the interview, President Obama's bureaucrats, the Obamacrats, they did come back to it. After having given them fair warning, we need this information. Why isn't it in your application? You don't know now? Can we ask you later? They actually come back to them. You want us to see what happened?
Did you have any luck with the budget financial data?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
No. Ta-da! But in Chris Christie's blame Obama at any cost, Obama derangement syndrome world, here's how he thinks that whole thing actually went down.
When we went in for the personal interview 2 weeks before the decision was made, and they raised the issue with us, Commissioner Schundler verbally gave them the 08 and 09 numbers 2 weeks before the decision was made.
Actually, no. No, he didn't. He had a couple of chances to do that, and we just saw him on tape not giving those numbers. What you just said right there, Governor, not true. Now that the tape has been released, that proves Governor Christie wrong. Governor Christie has responded exactly as you'd expect. He fired the guy that he told the lie about. But the fired education commissioner, Brett Schundler, is not going quietly. He's now talking to anyone who will listen. From the record of Bergen County, Schundler, quote, Schundler says he explicitly warned Christie not to make certain claims in public, but he went ahead and said them anyway. Also, Schundler described Christie as having, quote, hit one of his famous grooves, a full-scale rant where anger and bombast bubble to a boil. It's in those not-so-uncommon moments when Governor Christie is capable of saying just about anything. Mr. Schundler said, quote, I don't think the governor ignored what I said. I think the governor gets rolling, and a lot of stuff gets said. When he gets on a roll, Chris Christie apparently just reflexively blames President Obama and then hopes the story fits the cathartic blaming in the end. The sad kicker to this story is that after Chris Christie fired this guy, Chris Christie lied about what this guy did and then fired him. This guy who has this long conservative pedigree, he was a Republican mayor in a New Jersey city. He was praised by people like Newt Gingrich. He was on William F. Buckley's presidential shortlist at one point. This hardcore conservative guy, this up-and-comer, asked Chris Christie to please fire him rather than accept his resignation so Brett Schundler could collect unemployment benefits. Joining us now is Charles Stile. He's a columnist for The Record of Bergen County. He was among a group of reporters who met with the fired New Jersey Education Commissioner last week. Mr. Stile, thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let me ask you first if I've pretty much explained how this went down. Did I get any of that narrative wrong?
That was in exhaustive detail. Yes, you got it right.
That's what I specialize in, exhaustive. On a national level, people view Chris Christie as a real rising star in the Republican Party. Is this story becoming a big enough deal in New Jersey to affect that national view of Governor Christie?
I think that has yet to be seen. It's certainly becoming a story, a big story in New Jersey. We're talking about a great mystery involving, the bureaucracy. It doesn't have all the great elements of a traditional New Jersey narrative, political narrative, where there's corruption, there's sexual intrigue, and there's sexual intrigue with corruption. We don't have that in this case. We're talking about a whodunit, who ate the homework kind of story here. It's still, what has happened here, I think that the Democratic Party has long, for the past, since Christie's came to power, they've been basically reeling under the Christie tornado. He's been a force of nature for the past 8 months, and they've been waiting for some moment to crack his Teflon, and they think maybe this is it. But in terms of a national story, I don't think it's and whether or not it might tarnish his elevation to the national stage, I don't think this story rises to that yet.
At this point, Democrats going after Christie would be not that surprising. What ends up being surprising about this is to have Mr. Schundler sort of helping people out. In your column about this, you wrote, Schundler painted an unflattering portrait of Christie as truculent and predisposed to heap scorn on Obamacrats regardless of the true facts in the case. What did Brett Schundler say that painted that sort of a portrait?
Well, he recounted, again, this is his side of the story, but he recounted or paraphrased a conversation that he had with the governor prior to that infamous, now infamous press conference, which you dissected there. And he said that, and to paraphrase again, he said that he told the governor that he did not furnish the numbers and the facts to the Department of Ed bureaucrats. And when the governor started to rehearse some of the lines that he was going to say in the press conference, Schundler said, "Stop, don't say it. I did not say that. That's inaccurate." But he went ahead anyway. And so that is really, again, that's his side of the story, but if you step back and listen to it, and listen to some of the other things that he said about that conversation, you get this sense that the governor's mind was pretty much made up. He was going to say what he was going to say, and he was looking for any kind of kernel of fact or that Brett Schundler could provide him to rationalize the attack.
And briefly, Mr. Stile, am I right that Mr. Schundler is also releasing emails that bolster his side of the story?
Yes, he released copies of emails, and all those emails did show is that he made the same representations to Christie's staff on Tuesday and a couple times prior to that press conference. So that his whole point was, it wasn't just this one isolated time. There was a whole body of work here, or attempts by me to clarify the record and to show that I did not mislead anybody. I did not mislead the governor, and I did not arm him with inaccuracies to go out into the press conference and just blast away at the Obama administration.
It's not every time that the guy thrown under the bus is still yelling from underneath the bus, but that is happening in this case. Charles Stile, columnist for The Record of Bergen County, thanks very much for your time tonight, sir.
Oh, my pleasure.
Appreciate it.